Hi all, welcome to tonight's presentation, William Lane Craig and the Kalam Cosmological Argument. Here's how Craig's pet argument goes. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. He then goes on to describe that cause. The Kalam Cosmological Argument plus William Lane Craig's conclusions about the cause commit several fallacies: hasty generalization, unwarranted assumption, false equivocation, appeal to ignorance, affirm the consequence, and special pleading. So let's look at the first premise. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Of course, he threw in begins here because later he wants to exempt his God from having a cause by pretending it doesn't begin to exist, even though he offers no evidence that it didn't begin to exist. The first fallacy this premise commits is a hasty generalization, also known as an unrepresentative sample. This fallacy is committed when one generalizes from a sample that is too special or too small to be representative of a population. He talks of things that are macroscopic in scale and within the universe, that is, within space and time, having a cause, and generalizes that to universes at quantum scales. Within a universe, macroscopic objects that begin to exist have both an efficient cause and a material cause. That quantum events like radioactive decay have a material cause but not an efficient cause, that is, they are spontaneous. Quantum events like virtual particles have no cause at all unless you count empty space as a material for a material cause. Therefore, they're spontaneous from nothing. So what do we have so far? We have things within the universe that have both efficient and material causes. We have things within the universe that have only material causes, and we have things within the universe that are causeless, if you accept that empty space isn't material. The one thing we don't see is things within the universe that have only efficient causes. Somehow, William Lane Craig thinks that what we observe in the universe implies it is appropriate to assume the quantum scale universe outside of space and time had an efficient cause but not a material cause. This is a hasty and nonsensical generalization. Nonsensical because he uses things that we observe in the universe to justify saying the universe had a cause, but then he uses the one type of cause we don't observe in the universe and says that's the type of cause the universe had. The second fallacy in his first premise is an unwarranted assumption, which is a type of composition fallacy. A composition fallacy is inferring that the whole must have a particular attribute because its parts happen to have that attribute. He assumes the universe must have a cause if things in the universe have a cause. Moving on to the second premise. The universe began to exist. We don't know if the universe began to exist or not. Classical physics breaks down at the instance of the Big Bang. There are models of eternal universes that fit the data. There are also models of beginning universes that fit the data. Saying one way or the other is pure speculation. This is called an appeal to ignorance, or the fallacy of missing data. This fallacy involves making an assertion without evidence because you want it to be true. At this point, he also throws in his first definition of two for eternity, one for the universe, that is infinite time, and one for God, timelessness. This is an equivocation fallacy. An equivocation fallacy involves changing the meaning of a word during the course of an argument and using the different meanings to support the same conclusion. He does this because if the universe was timeless until the Big Bang, when time began, he could not say that it could not be eternal. And if God waited for an infinite amount of time before he created the universe, then Craig's necessary condition argument is exposed as nonsense. He needs two contradictory definitions to pull off fooling people with the Kalam Cosmological Argument. A common counter-argument to the universe could have been eternal and timeless before the Big Bang is that matter and energy are constantly changing and they can't be timeless. The same thing could be said about a conscious mind. You are special pleading saying that a conscious mind can be timeless, but matter cannot be timeless. I'll say more about that later. So now on to his conclusion. Ignoring the fallacies that he has just committed, he assumes that both premises are true and lead to the conclusion that the universe is caused. Then he commits more fallacies trying to show that cause to be God. Then William Lane Craig argues if the cause is personal or impersonal. He says such a cause must be uncaused, beginningless, changeless, timeless, spaceless, an immaterial being of enormous power, a personal agent endowed with freedom of the will. Basically, he's just listing what he thinks the properties of his God are and saying the cause must have those properties. But why? Let's look at them. Alright, the first two. Uncaused and beginningless. Not necessarily. Having a beginning is meaningless in the B theory of time. Having a cause is meaningless without time. These two things of being caused and having a beginning are not necessarily related. Okay, now changeless. If something is changeless, how would it affect a cause? Or how would it be a material cause? Those things are both nonsensical. Timeless. That doesn't indicate it's personal. It basically comes down to timeless matter, energy, and space versus a timeless immaterial consciousness. We know matter, energy, and space can exist. We have absolutely no evidence that an immaterial consciousness, a consciousness without a brain, can exist. Also, thoughts have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Seems like saying they're timeless is nonsensical. Okay, on to spaceless and immaterial. Those two words together sound like a definition of nothing. Next on the list, a being of enormous power. Why would that be necessary? There's such a thing in chemistry called a catalyst. It is not a being, and it does not have enormous power. Yet, it can cause very powerful chemical reactions. If the universe had a cause, that cause could be something like a catalyst, not requiring it to be a being or powerful. And finally, freedom of the will. Why would that be necessary? We already know that there are quantum events that are spontaneous. No free will required. So where did affirm the consequent come into play? Could say the entire argument. He wants to conclude that his God is real, so he uses fallacious premises to arrive at that conclusion. He pretty much reverse engineered it from the conclusion. Or you could say it's his defining of the properties of the cause must have. They are just assertions that point to his definition of God. Now for some reality. We don't know if everything that began to exist has a cause or not. We don't know if the universe began to exist or is eternal. We don't know if the universe has a cause or not, and we don't know anything about the universe's cause if it has one. We do know William Lane Craig's argument is fallacious and therefore unsound. We do know we have never observed something having an efficient cause without a material cause. We do know that the A theory of time, which says the future isn't real, can't be true in light of special relativity. Thus, the phrase began to exist is meaningless. And finally, we do know that believing an unsound argument as proof of anything is idiotic. Reality trumps mythology.